Hello, football fans, college football fans. It's time once again for Urban's Take with yours truly, Tim May. Urban Meyer, three-time national championship winning head football coach. Welcome again to your show, my man.
Yeah, good. I always look forward to this, Tim.
Good. Do you look forward to going to College Park this week, where big noon kickoff is going to be watching Maryland and Michigan? You're getting ready for the big one before the really big one.
Yeah, there's not great games this week. I know Oregon State is hosting Washington, and that's going to be a hell of a game. But
yeah,
the Fox Big Noon, they made a decision. This Harbaugh story's taken over the world, so we're there. We're going to have Wolverines through 3 weeks in a row. Last week at Penn State, this week at Maryland, and then obviously the showdown next week.
Yeah, crazy. You know, the big question is whether Jim Harbaugh is going to be there or not. You're going to be there. I mean, dude, can you imagine? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
No, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I mean,
keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And can you imagine what went on up there? Can you imagine? I mean, you know, as you and I have talked before, I mean, these aren't allegations anymore. The Big Ten suspended him because of things that the NCAA provided proof for them that they can prove, et cetera. So you move on from that, right? But how do you manage a football team from afar? As you well know, you got suspended back in 2018 by the school, and you weren't even on campus. You weren't allowed to be around the football team for 5 weeks there. One of the most horrendous, heinous things that's ever happened to a football coach, in my opinion. You and I have been down that road many times before. Basically a school president that didn't stand by you. You know, Jim Harbaugh's got a school president standing by him and stuff, but some things have been already proven in this thing. How does it come to a good end up there, in your opinion?
You know, I was hesitant to even dive into it because so often the narrative becomes, you know, like we witnessed, and all of a sudden the media and the narrative becomes like, and you're hearing things going, wait a minute, that's not true.
Yeah.
I you know, for Petiti to suspend them, it must be true. You know, it's, you know, I'm anxious to see how long it takes Central Michigan to do this investigation. That was he there or was he not there? And I think that, you know, for people that, you know, I've heard people say, well, everyone does it. No, this is not about sign stealing. This is about sending people on the road. And I guess the statement that he had no idea, their coaching staff had no idea. And how does a guy making $55,000 a year, you know, finance all these tickets, 30, you know, some big numbers. So that's not the question anymore if he did it. They did it. And now what's the responsibility of the head coach? And this is going to be drama, man. This is going to be, for the Big Ten commissioner to do that, suspend him 3 games.
Yeah.
That means he will not coach in that game next week. Now there's legal back and forth that's going to happen on Friday, but there must be a lot there. But I don't know if it's all our job to speculate, but there must be a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the suspension has been meted out. We'll see if a temporary restraining order or something else is issued on Friday when Jim Harbaugh goes in front of the judge, so to speak, and he plans to be there. It's wow, what an interesting time we're living in, Urban. What an interesting time.
Well, you said something that is intriguing. How about the president? You talk about loyalty, support.
Yeah.
You know, I think about the scenarios that happened at Ohio State with Jim Tressel and then myself, and then you got a president there that, you know, I guess it's probably risky because what if there is a lot there?
Yeah. You
know, but I would say he's doing the right thing up until it's proven he is supporting that team. He's supporting the coaching staff. The AD is. It's really intriguing to watch this from a distance and say, my goodness, I mean, how many other schools would support their coach like that?
Yeah.
When it's pretty, there's a lot of evidence saying that happened.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is when they answered the Big Ten, about things, they didn't deny that happened. They just want due process. You know, basically that's summing it up in a nutshell. But wow. But anyway, you know how I feel about what happened with you and stuff. And we've talked about that before. We'll just let that sleeping dog lie, keep snoring, but lie. Hey, latest CFP rankings are out. was quite expected. Ohio State dropping below Georgia from 1-2, and then of course Michigan and Florida State. But I want to ask you this: Washington, based on the college football playoff rankings, its own rankings, has the best victory. Because it beat Oregon. Washington's 5, Oregon's 6. That's going to settle itself. But is it going to be enough, you think, to get, if in fact Washington takes care of business or Oregon takes care of business, to get the number 5 or 6 team into that Final Four? Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, this committee's got a job to do. And I personally think Oregon is one of the best teams in the country. I know they had a loss, so you can't put them ahead of the undefeateds. But
right,
when you start talking about one-loss teams, that's what it's going to come down to. The undefeated teams are going to get in. But I don't see, Georgia might make it through undefeated. Obviously, one of the I call them the slash, either the Wolverines or the Buckeyes should make it out undefeated. What happens to that next group, the one-loss teams? And Oregon right now on tape is one of the best 4 teams in the country.
Yeah.
And I know they lost. They got to take care of business, but I predict they'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing though? Oregon State could really decide this thing. I mean, because I think
they're favored.
Yeah, they are favored.
Yeah.
Over Washington this week, and then in the Civil War they take on Oregon next week. I mean, wow, Oregon State's right there, man. It could really mess up the apple cart, the apple cart for the final version of the Pac-12. And DJ Uiagalelei, leaves Clemson, goes out there, and he could be really at the crux of this all, right?
Yeah, I watched him. I got up this morning and watched, because we're going to talk about that game a little bit on Big Noon, and I have not watched Oregon State.
Yeah.
I know Kyle Whittingham, my good friend at Utah, really respects that coach. Thinks he's one of the best coaches in the Pac-12, which makes him one of the best in the country. Very solid. They're not flashy at all. They run the ball really well. I think they have the leading rusher in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So this is a tough, and Washington has been playing with fire. Their last 6 games now, they're 1-score games.
Yeah.
And they're playing with fire. I still really like that offense, that coach, the quarterback. But they got a tough road here. They got this one, and obviously the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, no, you can't spell win without the W. Washington, man, as long as they keep winning, I think they're in. I wanted to get to this though. Texas A&M, we know they fired Jimbo Fisher this week after a huge win. They decided to lower the hammer, and both those coaches, he and Zach Arnett, Texas A&M hammers Mississippi State, and by Monday, both of those guys had been fired, which is the crazy world we're living in right now. But I wanted to ask you this: I don't need you to, because we've talked about Texas A&M underachieving several times on this over the last year and a half on this show, which I totally appreciate your opinions on things. But I've been to Texas A&M. I was there when Alabama played Texas A&M back in 2019 when I was retired, but not really retired, and then I got dragged all the way back into this stuff. But there are no better facilities in the country. There's no more passionate fan base. As I've told people, they finally got to do what they've always wanted to do, which was put together some collectives, and lure players there and stuff. There's no better stadium in the country than Kyle Field. I'm telling you, you've been there. It goes all the way to, almost all the way to the stratosphere and stuff. And it's always packed, and they're passionate about their team. What do you think is missing? Because they've always been a team that almost got there, a program as long as I've been alive, but never got that holy grail as long as I've been alive. What do you think is missing there, Urban?
I don't get that one. Whenever you take a job or research a job, the number one thing you look at is number one by far is recruiting base. I think Texas high school football is the best in the country. Of all the players we signed over all the years, we've never had a player from Texas not make it.
Yeah.
Tough, rugged coaching, usually really good families. I love Texas high school football. I think it's the very best in the country. Then you look at the resources and support. There's none better. So I don't understand that. I don't understand. A good friend of mine, Steve Adazio, is a line coach there. He loves it there. He says, this is a top 5 job. And he's been at Florida with me. So I don't get it, Tim. They got to get the right guy in there, I guess. How do you not? Jimbo Fisher won a national championship. They've had good coaches, but if you say what's the problem, I have no idea.
Let me ask you this though. You got hired at Bowling Green. You were, at Notre Dame. You got hired at Bowling Green. You had never been a head coach. You go two seasons there, turn it around, wherever you want to call it, propelled it. You go to Utah. In my opinion, I've said many times, 2004, y'all should have gotten a chance to play for the national championship. I was saying that then, and I'm saying it now because that was a really good, maybe once in a generation team there. And then you go to Florida. Yeah, you were a big name coming out of Utah. But my point is, you weren't somewhere else as a big name and somebody trying to lure you, if you follow my drift. I would never have put Utah on Florida's level at that moment. I'm kind of talking in circles here. Main thing I'm talking about here is, should you be going after guys at established big-time schools, should Texas A&M, or should they take a shot? They took a shot with Jimbo Fisher. Guys won a national championship. It didn't work out. Where should they be looking for a coach, in your opinion?
Yeah, there's no secret sauce for that. Where you take young like Kyle DeBoer. Think about that guy. He was at Indiana a few years ago, and he goes to Fresno, and he's an excellent coach. You look at Leipold and the coaches of Kansas State and Kleinman and Leipold. I think those are the two best coaches in the country in the same state in Kansas. So there's no secret sauce to that. I would, if I was hiring a coach, there's two things I'd look at: is what kind of culture does he develop and how does he recruit? Other than that, when you start talking about what style of offense, those are all important, but culture, what's his background? What is it? What kind of culture is it? And then second of all, can that person recruit? Because you better go get players.
Yeah.
And other than that, make sure you can hire a great staff. There's no secret sauce. There's people you'd say, this is a can't miss, and they miss. I mean, how does Scott Frost go to Nebraska? And we all thought that's done. They're going to bring that place back, and it didn't happen.
Yeah. Sometimes it just doesn't work. All right. Georgia takes on Tennessee this week. Alabama hosts mighty Chattanooga. They're both playing teams from Tennessee this week. They're both are already in the SEC championship, Southeastern Conference championship game. Georgia's going for a three-peat, and you tried to warn people not to write off Alabama many weeks ago when some of your brethren there, even on the Big Noon Kickoff dais, were doing that. You're right about Alabama, and they got Jalen Milroe coming on. Is Alabama picking up steam at exactly the right time? Of course, the answer is yes. But what do you see? What do you see there?
And they've only lost 4 games in the November, December in the last decade.
Yeah,
so that's when they get. That's an excellent staff. They have. Don't ever challenge your roster because they have great players, and they'll figure it out. And they did figure it out, because I was really concerned early in the year. They looked about as un-Alabama as I've ever seen against South Florida. That was terrible. And then you watch him now, and I'll tell you that Milroe, he might be the best athlete in college football.
Yeah.
And obviously you got Marvin Harrison Jr., but that's Percy Harvin, that's Braxton Miller, that's Reggie Bush. I actually watch it even when I don't have to, because I really enjoy watching that quarterback.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, like I told you a couple of weeks ago, they need to run that Texas offense in 2005, and it looks like that's almost what they're doing. I mean, let this man make plays, right?
Yeah, they ran him 22 times in the last game, and you got to be careful, because obviously you get dinged and the backups in there. But he is very courageous. He's running. He doesn't seem to be resisting it. A lot of it's scramble. So yeah, he's do not. If I'm a betting person, I'm saying Alabama's in the Final Four.
Wow. I'm not gonna bet against you. All right, Big Ten's no different. Michigan, Ohio State are headed for a showdown, the final Big Ten East division showdown. If like you said, if Michigan can get by Maryland, you've been to Maryland before with a really good team and escaped by the skin of your teeth. You never know what's really going to happen on a Saturday in college football. And of course, Ohio State is hosting Minnesota this week. I just wanted to ask you about Ohio State. We know about Michigan. That machine just kept going last week, even without Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. That's pretty impressive to run the ball 32 times in the second half. We're going to get to that in a minute, though. That's my checkmate moment, at least the one I'm putting out there. You may have a different one. But is Ohio State and Kyle McCord, are they coming around sufficiently offensively to suit you at this point in the season? Do you see, I mean, I know they beat a beleaguered Michigan State last week, but what do you see about Ohio State that maybe you like or you're concerned about?
The concern is the Big Ten is not good this year. The Big Ten, the bottom half of the Big Ten, normally you have Michigan State, Wisconsin. Iowa's good on defense. Offense are bad. But usually you got those teams, and you got a Minnesota or Nebraska that's a really good team. They're not. They're just it's not a good league right this year. You got two teams at the top. Penn State turned out to be somewhat everybody was excited about them, but they don't look like on the same par as those other two teams. So
yeah,
it's back to the Big Two and Little Eight. When I grew up, that's what everybody said, and it's the top two teams. Now, what happens when two sledgehammers collide? Ohio State has had two of them, Notre Dame and Penn State. The Wolverines have had one, Penn State. And Penn State, if you watch that game closely, the right tackle for the Wolverines really got worked over early in that game. And they ran the ball 32 straight times, like you said. And I've kind of heard because they were struggling to drop back pass. That's not good. You are not going to be able to run 32 times again. Certainly not against Buckeyes, and certainly not in the playoffs. So they better make sure that offensive line is equipped to handle some of these good pass rushers coming up.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you this, though. I mean, I kind of let the cat out of the bag, but here we are at the end of this thing, and a checkmate moment, which is my favorite part of this show, because you kind of look back at how did a team put another team away. And it was impressive because we saw that Penn State defense, but that Penn State defense is really geared to play a team that's got to run and pass because, Manny Diaz likes to blitz. He likes to do all these exotic things. And when a team comes out and says, we're not throwing the ball, we're going to run it 32 times down your throat and stop it. And basically they couldn't stop it on a consistent basis. That's about as checkmate a moment as you can get in modern college football, isn't it?
Well, they did stop them a few times. The problem is Penn State's offense was so bad. So Sherrone Moore, the offense coordinator, acting head coach, I heard he said something at halftime. Someone told me that they heard that he told the players we're going to, which I love that. I love the idea of a coach. I would do that, say we are going to turn around and hand that ball off, and it's all on you, offensive line. And they didn't. But the checkmate moment was when, in my mind, the ineptness of the Penn State offense and the Wolverine defense. I'm actually going to talk about the Wolverine defense. They're the number one defense by far in the country. And they are elite tacklers and they hustle. So to me, the checkmate moment, I know the offense ran the ball and all that, but the Wolverine defense was a checkmate moment in that game.
Gotcha. Hey, we're going to be back next week, Turkey week, to talk Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan leads the nation in scoring defense, and Ohio State's right behind them. The only two teams in single figures in scoring defense. Urban, that's like I said, they get by this week. It's going to be a hell of a collision in it.
Fox is telling us this might be the most watched game in college football.
Yeah.
When all the storylines are done, the fact that this is, maybe 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 3. We've had some great, there's been the book has been written over and over again, but I can't wait for the Netflix show on this one though.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I want to find out what the heck's going on. I mean, you got a coach that missed the beginning first 3 games of the year, and people forget they had, I think, 2 other coaches that missed games.
Yes.
And a third was going to miss games, but he went to the NFL. And then you have this, and 6 games, 2 suspensions in 1 year, and then the hated Wolverines and the hated Buckeyes next week. So I'll tell you what, let's make sure we tape our ankles for our show and for the big noon kickoff.
You got it. Hey, tape our fists, man. It's going to go from the soap opera off the field to the fist fight, the rock fight on the field, right in the big house. It doesn't get much better than that. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, to preview that game and a couple of other just huge rivalry games that are coming up next week. Urban Meyer, thanks for joining me again on Urban's Take with Tim May, my man.
Appreciate you, Tim.
Until next week, we'll see you then, folks.